you say there, all you Italian stallions? Well, everyone, the time has finally come to talk about my favorite film franchise of all time. I'm definitely not the first to say this, and I wouldn't blame you for rolling your eyes at me, but the character of Rocky and his movies mean a great deal to me. He's just such an inspiration, so much so that I actually took up boxing as a kid after being introduced to these movies. And I'm clearly not alone in this inspiration. Look no further than all the people running up those iconic stairs in Philadelphia. Or just look up the franchise online to see how much love it gets. And when I really thought about it, I realized that Rocky is such an inspiration to us as the audience because he's such an inspirational figure within his own movie universe. In fact, I would contest that almost every character Rocky comes across in these movies is made better by their interactions with him. Now, of course, Rocky himself isn't perfect. He can be hypocritical, he's worked for a loan shark, he is stupid awkward on a first date, and he's not always a perfect family man. But through it all, he steps up, tries to be better, and tries to prove what he and others can do. Whether you're an average guy taking on the heavyweight champ, or the reigning heavyweight champ taking on a roided out super boxer. But back to my point. I thought I'd go over our most memorable characters and see how they're each made better by Rocky's impact on their lives. I obviously can't touch on every minor character, but I'll cover those that really matter in the overall plot of the movies. And I'll also try to stay in chronological order. A lot of characters will be discussed, so this is your spoiler warning. Anyway, who better to start this off than the love of Rocky's life? When we first see Adrian, she's the shy and meek pet store worker. She keeps her head down and tries to go about life without much of an impact on the world around her. She lets her brother talk trash about her and treat her as less than. But Rocky sees a shimmer underneath and wants her to see it in herself. And as their relationship blossoms, you can see her recognize her own self-worth, enough even to stand up to Polly.
And you made me feel like a loser! I'm not a loser!
Through Rocky seeing value in her, she's finally able to recognize the value that was always there. Speaking from the experience of my own marriage, sometimes all it takes for you to believe in yourself is for someone else to believe in you first. And after this, Adrian can still be timid, but she'll stand up when she needs to. Whether it's in Rocky's defense.
I'm trying very hard and you're being rude. That's bad manners, ain't it, Adrian?
Yes.
Or to confront Rocky himself and get him back where he needs to be.
What do we have that can't be replaced? What? We got everything but the truth. What's that truth, damn it?
Sylvester Stallone always said that Rocky was a love story, first and foremost. And Talia Shire gave us a love interest who maybe needed a little bit of a push to figure out who she is, but thanks to that influence, is able to grow and see herself for who she is and what she deserves. Okay, it's definitely a challenge to point out ways that Paulie is made better. He's an alcoholic, he's a mooch, and he says some things at Apollo's gym that I really don't like. But we do see a little growth here and there. Of course, in the first movie, he's verbally and borderline physically abusive, but we see him soften up at the end with this kind gesture.
Let's go, buddy. Come on. Polly?
Adrian!
He's also got this melodramatic line from the fourth movie.
But if I could just unzip myself and step out and be someone else, I want to be you. You're real hot, Rock.
And in his last appearance, we see that he has regrets for the things he's done. You know, I think a lot of Paulie's outbursts come from a place of insecurity about who he is compared to Rocky. Obviously, comparison is the thief of joy, but I think this is worthy of note because it plays into what I'm going to say at the end. For now, I'll say this. Paulie is a wreck, but he does look up to Rocky and sees in him what he would like to be himself. Ho-ho, the crotchety old trainer cliché. It's a trope, but it got to be that way for a reason. From the moment we first see Mickey, he's busting Rocky's chops, and when Rocky asks him why, he tells him this.
Because you had the talent to become a good fighter. You became a leg breaker. Some cheap, second-rate loan shark.
So it's clear that at one point, Mickey did believe in Rocky, but has lost his faith in him since. Now, once Apollo Creed gives Rocky a chance at a title fight, Mickey gets a bit opportunistic and self-serving, only wanting to manage him now that he's a big shot, but we see his respect and confidence in Rocky grow back. His heart is softened at the sight of his pupil striving to prove himself, especially in the second movie after he's seen Rocky go the distance once.
Why don't you stand up and fight this guy hard like you done before? That was beautiful.
I think it's appropriate that Rocky 2 ends with the image of Rocky and Mickey together, because that paternal bond reaches its conclusion in the next installment with Mick's death. Listen, I gave you the spoiler warning. And as flawed as the fifth movie is, I always get emotional at that flashback to Mickey's training. where we see that that rock-solid heart has been softened into a pillow. It's great stuff. So if you were the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world and your established challenger couldn't make the fight, what would you do? Why, you'd give a shot to some no-name dude who fights for scraps, of course. That's a totally normal and sane decision that the Boxing Commission would approve of. Okay, in all seriousness, we all know that Apollo's huge flaw throughout the series is his ego. Now, obviously, the entire first fight between the two is a humbling experience for Apollo, but I think there's one particular eye-opening moment for him.
6, 7, 8, 9. Okay.
14th round, Rocky's down and he's clearly proven enough. But, as Duke says,
and the man kept coming after you.
So when Rocky bruises that ego by going the distance, Apollo becomes a real heel and demands a rematch to prove he's still got it. Now, while Apollo is clearly embracing the bad guy persona, we can at least see that he's stopped underestimating Rocky. His arrogance has given way at least that much. And once Rocky bests him in the second fight, Apollo is able to let go of his pride, at least temporarily, but they go on to train together for Rocky's rematch with Clubber Lang.
Maybe we could win it back together.
I'm a sucker for enemies becoming friends, and for my money, this may be the very best example of it. Okay, for the next couple of characters, I'll make it quick. Clubber Lang, Ivan Drago, and Tommy Gunn are all pretty irredeemable. Maybe they learn some humility, but I think that's the best we can hope for. Actually, you know what? That's not entirely fair for Drago. He has a pretty decent character arc later on in Creed 2, but that has more to do with his relationship with his son Victor rather than with Rocky. The channel FILMSWITCH made a pretty popular video on this, which I'll link in the description. I can't put it much better than he did, so I'll move on. Alright, you want to know how Rocky helps his son grow? Very little to be seen in the first 4 movies, and what there is to see in Rocky 5 isn't much. But this scene right here from Rocky Balboa takes the freaking cake.
You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame. Like a big shadow.
Right here, he's telling his son Robert that he sees the value in him, but that if he wants to unlock it, he has to step up and see it in himself. Sound familiar? Robert's been blaming his dad for the big shadow he casts over his life and expects him not to take this big exhibition match with the reigning champion. But this speech helps the young man to realize it's not his dad who's holding him back.
But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody.
Not gonna lie, I myself listen to this speech anytime I need a kick in the butt to get going. After this, they reconnect and Robert is in his dad's corner. It is unfortunate that in Creed, it's revealed that the two have gone their separate ways, but there is a beautiful reconnection at the end of Creed 2. So also in the 6th movie, Rocky befriends little Marie, a girl he tried to help out way back in the first movie, who's all grown up now with a son named Steps. There's not a lot to say here since this relationship is only explored in one movie, but Rocky does help her recognize her worth.
Yo, who put this stuff in your head?
Nobody.
Well, it just don't get in there by itself. Come on, you deserve better.
Also, the heavyweight champion Mason the Line Dixon gets a lesson in his personal value. The crowds don't like him because they don't see him fighting any worthy opponents. But when Rocky gives him an unexpected challenge, we really get the best overall outcome for the both of them. And finally, the torch that Rocky carries gets passed to the more than worthy Adonis Creed. The illegitimate son of Apollo, Adonis is adopted and raised by his widow and grows up pretty decently. He holds a sweet office job, but fights in underground clubs on the side. Once he decides to quit his job and fight full-time, he moves to Philly and, after a lot of convincing, he gets Rocky to train him. Now here's the interesting parallel between the two characters. Much like Rocky, Adonis is on a quest to prove himself and show that he can go the distance, but it's for a totally different reason. While Rocky is seen as a bum from the neighborhood, Adonis is seen as having grown up with a silver spoon, and when his shot at the title comes, the reigning champ has this to say.
My father worked on the docks. His father was heavyweight champion of the world. People like Silver Spoon over there. You don't know nothing about me. I know enough about you.
Though the circumstances obviously differ, Rocky knows Johnny's struggle here, and just as he did for Adrian, just as he did for Marie, and just as he did for his own son, he teaches this young man who he is and what he's capable of.
Say it.
We're gonna knock that son of a bitch down.
I know you are. You know why? Because you're a Creed, and I love you, kid.
Along with all this, Rocky is struck ill and Adonis pushes him to fight this new kind of battle. And for me, this ability to inspire is all the proof I need that the torch has been passed on to the right person. So there's all the major characters Rocky inspires. But like I said, this is just limited to his own movie universe. I've actually really enjoyed watching other YouTubers check out these movies for the first time. It's great seeing their reactions and reliving that initial inspiration. Now back to what I was saying about Paulie. Remember when I said he looks up to Rocky and sees what he'd like to be? I think the same could be said for us as the fans. Now, I like to think that I and many others do a little bit better than Paulie does, and that's ultimately why I think Rocky is so important. He makes us want to be more than we are. We like characters like Evelyn Wang because we can relate to her. We admire characters like Superman because he's the paragon we aspire to be. But Rocky embodies both. We see ourselves in him, the everyman who just wants a shot to show what he's capable of. But then also, when he goes that distance, when he faces the insurmountable odds, that's the paragon come to life. He's a character we can all relate to, and for that reason, when we see his triumphs, it reminds us that maybe we're not so far from that ourselves. Stallone, you done good with this one. I've been Kenny Steps. Take it easy, and keep stepping into the movies.